So I figured I'd do something a little bit different than my usual Legends of Runeterra build showcases and other content, and actually just talk a little bit about the game itself, the state I feel it's in, and what things that could be done to really improve the experience. I think there's a few areas that are lacking that are potentially holding it back from really taking off. The first one being the new player experience. About a month ago, I decided to start a new account that would be a free to play account. I've been playing Legends of Runeterra pretty much since it's been released, and Path of Champions since it was added into the game. But when a new player starts up Legends of Runeterra, when I did this with my new account, it right away puts a big pop up that says go play Path of Champions, which that part's great. I think it should. That's where all the new development for the game is going. So directing players to Path of Champions makes sense. However, Path of Champions doesn't have any really new player guidance. It sort of expects that you already know how to play the game, that you understand how turns work, how playing cards works, how your mana scaling works, everything like that. What, fast, slow, burst, focus, what the different spell things are, what the stack is. None of this is explained at all to any completely new player. They are just tossed into the deep end. They are expected to just sort of figure things out as they play. No explanation of keywords, nothing. So I think if you're going to tell players when they start a new Legends of Runeterra account, hey, go play Path of Champions, you need to have a better landing spot for them, that they can really understand how just the basics of the game works. They need some better explanation on all the different currencies, other things like that, how to acquire power. And I think even they probably need a better hook for new players, where right now, you sort of start out pretty low power and you build up as you go through. But if you play other roguelites, similar to like Slay the Spire or other things that have a very similar style to this, those you're actually able to pretty much build game breaking builds from the get go. And that's part of what hooks players in, where they feel like, oh, the next really powerful build is just around the corner. But with Legends of Runeterra, things are a lot more long term. You're focused on getting account power, and eventually, your whole account becomes strong enough that almost any adventure is easy. But I think they need just some way of getting players a taste of what getting a powerful build rolling feels like. I don't know the best way for them to do that, but I think they should look at different ways to really get that hook in for players a little bit earlier on. Just if it's giving them temporary access to some things, or sample builds that they can do a playthrough with. I don't know, but they should figure something out that gets players to understand the potential of the game, and then that way they can start to work towards that over their play, and start to acquire the relics and other things that really make this game shine. Then the other part beyond that sort of new player experience and getting players to understand how the game works, I think they also need something on sort of the veteran side. I know in about 2 months they said that they're going to be releasing something that will change the way, or have a new way that Legends of Runeterra can be played. So hopefully whatever they're releasing in 2 months is something that will satisfy a lot of the veteran players and help them to see, have something to do that's different at the end game. From what I would like to see, I think having some sort of asynchronous PvP would be a great way to add sort of interest into the game. There's other games that have something like this. If you've ever played like He Is Coming or Bazaar, Bazaar is a bit more competitive. I don't think that Path of Champions needs a competitive asynchronous PvP option, but it would be really great if there was an adventure similar to like Aurelian Soul right now, right? But instead of at the end of the adventure where you face all these, different champions or other things and you build up your deck's power and you finally get it to, the end there, instead at the end you face a player's deck. Or whoever last beat that adventure or something like that. You could, have it reset each day or do other things in order to, make sure there isn't one deck that everybody's seen and no one gets to see anything else. But you just have something where the, player beats this adventure, they get to the end, and then their deck becomes the deck that people face for a period of time until somebody else beats it, and then their deck becomes the one that people face. Obviously, AI piloting a deck is going to be a lot worse than the player piloting the deck, so most likely other players will be able to eventually beat it, but it'll get you a chance to see what other players are doing with their builds and see some just wacky combinations, other things like that, and help inspire players. And it gives them something to say, hey, I want my deck or my build to be the thing that other people have to face and overcome. And it just provides sort of a way to get scaling challenge in that way. So I think that would be great. Or, even a full adventure that all the encounters are, different player decks or something like that. I think that would be really cool. I'm curious to see what Riot ends up doing and what the Path of Champions team decides to put out in like 2 months. Hopefully it's something interesting. Doesn't have to be asynchronous PvP. I know there's been a lot of chat about having an endless mode or something like that. I don't know how you would really get the power scaling to work with that, where players can keep growing. We already become pretty darn powerful by the end of the current adventures, where it's even if with some of these decks, if you had thousands of HP, you can literally create builds that end up doing enough damage in one turn that it'll break the bite count thing that they have. I forget exactly. It's like 2 to the power of 100 or something. I don't think it's that high. 2 to the power of like 30 or something. But anyway, it's a huge number. But people are already able to break that, and it's not. I don't see how you'd create a unlimited scaling challenge. So I think. For me, the obvious answer is to have players face off against each other's deck because that adds variety, but maybe they have other things they've come up with, and I'd be curious to see what that ends up being. So that's just sort of my thoughts on where things are at currently. I hope they keep adding more champions, more different ways to play. I also would love to see things like the runes that were added for Spirit Blossom champions. I'd like to see that on other regions as well. Just gives more customization options. I think having more ways for players to mess around with their decks and do more drafting. I'm glad that next month the Rogues of Runeterra is coming back. That lets you build more a different starting deck. So that's always fun to mess around with. But anyway, that's just all I wanted to yap about. Hope you guys are enjoying the game, and if you have other ideas or things, it would be great to hear what you guys are thinking about as well. So thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.